I don't intend to repost any of the imagery of the appalling head on a spike in Bakhmut, but I would draw your attention to the fact that a few days ago I posted stories about Russian troops, Putin's troops, Wagner brigade, walking past slaughtered Ukrainian soldiers and asking whether or not they had been there for long, and referring to them as dill, and pointing out that they had been decapitated and that their hands had been removed. And I wondered at the time what they had done, what the previous group of Russian soldiers had done with the hands and heads that they'd taken. Now we know. This is like something out of Dracula. This is like something out of medieval Europe. This is brutal, savage, and utterly, utterly foul. And it's one stage worse, I think, than the savagery of the hammer. And I know that there will be people who will say, well, Ukrainians are also doing dreadful things on the battlefield. Well, nothing of this scale. Nothing of this scale. And I think when evil is unleashed, it affects many, many people in many, many ways. And evil has been unleashed. But it's been unleashed by Putin's forces and by Prigozhin's forces. And they are the ringmasters of this diabolism. And it is diabolical. Utterly, utterly diabolical. There used to be an understanding that the dead are sacred, that we bury the dead, that we treat the dead with respect, whether they are our comrades or our enemies. Not so the Prigozhin criminals, not so the musicians, not so the skulls, and not so the Wagner Brigade. And their example, of course, is infectious. I'm horrified, and I'm going to be very cautious about what I post in future. I was asked, one or two of the people who comment, who seem to have a Russian background, are asking me what sources I use, and recommending various secondary sources. I've looked at the secondary sources. I think they're faulty. I've looked at what primary sources I can find, and some of those primary sources are fairly harrowing. But the question is really whether or not you're looking at a source in English, or whether you're looking at a source in Russian, or indeed whether you're looking at a source in Ukrainian. What is interesting, of course, looking at Telegram postings, which are largely uncensored, is that many of the posts that are there are Russian, and many of the more extreme Russian posts don't get anywhere near social media. When you look on YouTube, what you get, even if it's in Russian, what you get is a Ukrainian report. And Ukraine tends to dominate the reports that come through mainstream media. So I think it's always been important to check what is being posted by Russian soldiers on the front, and also to check what is being said in the Russian parliament and in Russian media. For the most part, I dismiss Russian media because it is one long propaganda